illegal developments. Two, we're also looking at uncompleted developments. We have allocated properties to developers, and they have not developed for quite a long time. And according to the allocations that were given to them, there are terms and conditions, and these terms and conditions have not been met.
Authorities are also looking at random and unbefitting structures being put up across the TDA by unscrupulous individuals who shy away from regulations isolating standards designed for buildings and resorts in the sector.
As you have seen, the level of development, the standard is very low. It's not up to the standard of a TDA, a resort area for tourism. Secondly, they are sitting on land that is meant for allocation to investors who are coming here to invest in the tourism sector.
Cooperation with local authorities could surely help, but the situation in a number of new settlements like Medina Salam and Zambia will undoubtedly pose the biggest challenge for officials. Welcome to Zambia, one of the most recent villages emerging in the southern coast. A mass settlement pattern has inhabitants gradually moving into the tourism development area with only a few distances to the shoreline. Now, how could they have missed the demarcated boundary is the question I put to Baba Cham of the Department of Physical Planning.
There was demarcation, and it goes just the way we came. It follows that direction and goes up to Kartong. Yes, there were pillars all around, but as you can see, they have uprooted all these pillars.
Now settlements are emerging here so quickly.
So quickly, and as you go, the settlements are, as you go.
One thing I realize here, this is the village of Sambuya, but you have more people here on this side, close to the beach, than on the main road, which is strange. The settlement must have started from the road coming towards this end.
I don't know how it came about, but they seem to be more clustered here around the beach.
And they miss your pegs or what?
No, they saw the pegs actually. They were here. The pegs were here before them, and they operated the pegs and settled.
Another issue augmenting the encroachment is the large population of expatriate communities of Europeans in particular settling in droves inside the TDA in communities like Sanyang and Batakunku, where a seeming disregard for bounds has multitudes of migrants taking over vast areas of land reserved for tourism development. As the same story continues all across the vast tourism development area, officials are being impelled to swift action, bringing yet another demarcation exercise. But the elusive question here is, how do they recover the enormous chunks of reserved terrain with concrete infrastructure in time to cut investments, which usually require huge and strategic areas to implement business projects and undertakings? Ibrahim Jata, GRTS.
We now take our first break. The news continues right after.
These are moments you wouldn't want to miss. Is it love, lust, obsession, or infatuation? You want to find out? I'll provide you with all the answers and solutions to your problems on The Love Zone.
Welcome back. North Korea says it will soon begin the trial of a U.S. citizen held in the country since late last year. The Korean Central News Agency said Park Jung-ho was plotting to overthrow the communist regime, but now as a prisoner, he is one of their regime's biggest assets when it comes to dealing with the United States. Jim Clancy explains why.
Of Kim Jong-un, but analysts warn Pyongyang may try to use the Korean-American citizen as a bargaining chip to gain high-level talks with Washington.
But utilizing the arrest of a U.S. citizen of Korean descent is a tactic which Pyongyang has used time and time again, and it's managed to bring into the country very high-level Americans such as Bill Clinton and Bill Richardson.
The strategy worked in 2009 when former President Bill Clinton engaged with Kim Jong-il over 2 American journalists sentenced to 8 years in prison. As a result, Yoona Lee and Laura Ling were freed after 6 months in jail. Kenneth Bay faces far more serious charges. He was arrested last November in the Raesun Free Trade Zone along North Korea's border with Russia after leading a tour group into the country. North Korea's official news agency says he has confessed to his crimes and they have hard evidence. That evidence may be nothing more than photographs taken of North Korean orphans. Bay, also known by his Korean name, Pae Jun-ho, was a Christian activist. Friends say he published some of the photographs and when viewed by the outside world, give a less than glowing assessment of life under Kim Jong-un's regime. Analysts say we shouldn't be surprised.
The bottom line is that in some ways what we're seeing out of Pyongyang is not new. They've used all of these tactics in the past. What has changed, though, is that they have, in many respects, become really a de facto nuclear power, one which, of course, the international community cannot recognize as such. And the question is, if they are capable, in the short term, of miniaturizing a nuclear device and putting it on a missile that could hit a target in the Asia-Pacific, what is the region and what is the United States willing to do to try and counteract that, to try and come up with a strategy to see if they can change North Korea's calculations?
A very tough question, and a very important one for Kenneth Bay.
The search for survivors continue in Bangladesh 4 days after the building collapse, trapping thousands of workers. Many have been pulled out alive, and there is still hope for more. On the line from the Bangladeshi capital Dhaka, journalist David Bergman earlier spoke to CNN's Natalie Allen.
Are saying that there are now 4 individuals which they think are still alive, and they're making attempts to try to rescue them right now. There was a decision this morning which still stands that the army will bring in the heavy machinery to try and just generally remove all of the slabs of cement and other building material where the building used to stand, which would then move the a process from being a rescue operation to a recovery operation. But they're still waiting, they're still hoping that these 4 people could be saved. But people in the site are now being, the rescuers are basically being removed in general, and it looks very likely that in a short period of time, the heavy machinery will enter.
And we see this video as you talk, David, of just, workers descending into what looks like they carved out a little hole where they're trying to get down in there and pull people out. Help us appreciate the entire scene. This was a big building that collapsed. 600 people are still missing. How big of an area are different rescuers working at the site?
In the hole that you're mentioning is where the 4 workers, which they hope to rescue, are apparently located. And this appears to be the only rescue attempt right now being taken place on this area, which is a large area. I mean, there were about 3,000 workers on 8 different floors, and it housed 5 different manufacturing companies. And people have been surrounding this area for the last 5 days, and there's a huge crowd. But I think, and soon people are going to come to the locality to find out, to try to recover the dead bodies. That's most likely to happen within the next 24 hours.
I'll take our second break. The news continues right after. And before we go, a reminder of our news-making headlines once again. The Minister of Health, Balagaba Jahumpa, has inaugurated an historic multi-million Dalasi Health Center in Dongoroba in the Lower River region. The Gambia Association of Resident Medical Doctors have been embarking on a fundraising exercise in response to the demand for blood. North Korea has announced plans to try a U.S. citizen for allegedly plotting to overthrow the communist regime, but opponents have said Pyongyang is using him as a bargaining chip.